Rita, thank you so much for joining us today and your willingness to be our first person. And we have such a short period with you that we'll just start right away, if that's okay.
Okay, my pleasure.
All right. Although World War II began with Germany and the Soviet Union attacking Poland in September 1939, war didn't come directly to your community in Romania until 1940. Before we turn to your life during the war, tell us what you can about your early years and your family and life before the war began.
Okay, life before the war was idyllic. My parents lived in a two-family home. My mother came from a family of 8 children, a very pious family who lived in a small village, not next to the town where she lived when she got married. She was the eldest, and 2 children had died before the war. And my grandfather had an orchard and a dry goods business as well. I was the first grandchild, so I was doted on by my aunts. And my father came from a family of 4 children. He was the only son. And my grandmother became a widow in World War I. So 2 of her children, the oldest ones, went to the United States, to the land of where gold could be found in the streets, and they wound up in sweatshop, because this is, after all, a melting pot. It should be open to immigration, I believe. And they worked very hard. I had never met them because they came before World War II. My grandmother, it was hard, so she sent the 2 oldest ones to the United States. There was some family here. And my father and his sister, who was 18 months younger, remained with my grandmother. He married my mother, and they bought a family home together. My grandmother, my father's mother, lived with us. And at that time, the Jewish family spoke German, because when my mother was born there, it was Austria-Hungary, and a lot of the well-to-do families spoke German to their children. And my grandmother said, no, I do not want my granddaughter to speak German. I want her to speak Yiddish. So it's thanks to her, my very first language was Yiddish, and that's how I was able to teach it and keep it up with it. I thank her for that.
And you also family also spoke Romanian, right?
No, they spoke Yiddish, and my mother, yes, she knew some, but I didn't, because I didn't go to school there.
Because you didn't go to school yet.
No, I was, and then we had a dry goods store. It was a modern house, and my father's sister lived with us. It was a 2-family house. The front was a store. My mother had we had radio. We did have electricity.
And that was part of being a modern home, right?
Yes,
having electricity.
A modern home, and doing well. My mother was in the store selling the scarves. They did native scarves for the Ukrainians. And my father employed some people, as you said. And I was lucky to have pictures. I'll explain how because many survivors did not have any pictures of themselves when they were little. We had sent pictures to the United States, and then my mother had hidden pictures.
Had hidden pictures, and we'll come back to that.
Yes.
I was struck when you said it was a modern home, because not only did you have a radio and electricity, you had indoor plumbing, and that made it very modern in the community you were in.
Yes, and my mother had a nanny for me because she was in the store, and somebody came to wash the clothes. We didn't have washing machines then, and of course the water was, we had a well.
You're a wonderful musician and singer, and your father was
Yes.
also, wasn't he?
I have fragmented pieces of memory. That's why at first I was hesitant to talk about my story. But I remember he had a very good voice, and he took me to services regularly on the Sabbath, and we observed all the holidays. But I would say modern. There was only Orthodox or non-believers, and I do remember that, and that was instilled in me. He was a wonderful person, which I heard later on from friends, because unfortunately I didn't get to know him very well.
Rita, and turning to, of course, that awful period that began soon after that, Germany and the Soviet Union attacked Poland September 1939, launching World War II. Your town was directly affected in early 1940 when the Soviets occupied your town of Văscăuti. You were not yet 4 years old, but tell us what you can about what you know about that period when you lived under the Soviets, as both the Soviets and the Germans were allies at that time.
Okay. Well, when the Soviets marched into town, they conscripted all the young men into the army. My father was one of them, and that was the last time I was to see my father. I was 4.5 when he took a train, not knowing where he was going, and my uncle was not conscripted for some reason, so he stayed behind. And I do remember when the soldiers were marching after my father was conscripted, the Russian soldiers were marching in the street. I had a cousin who was 7 years older than I, and from the attic, he just looked out, and suddenly we heard pounding on the door, and they said, "There's a spy in here." And we children hid under the beds. It was very frightening for us. They came with bayonets, and my mother begged them. She said, my husband was in the army. Please, we haven't done anything, but we saw a spy. And then my cousin came out. This was the spy. He's only he was 10 at the time. I don't know.
Looking out the window in the
Looking
attic.
out the window. They send all the well-to-do Jews, we were not the richest Jew, to Siberia. And they stayed there for about a year, and then the Germans came back.
Before we turn to
I mean, the Romanians, excuse me.
Before the Romanians came, do you know what happened to your family's business during that time under the Soviets?
Oh, everything had to be closed.
Everything was closed, yeah.
Everything was closed. We were no longer, I had lots of friends and cousins. We played in the street. That was completely gone. So there was sadness. We didn't know what would happen next. And then when the Romanians came back, my aunt, by the way, there was one surviving sister. My mother, as I said before, was one of 8. And her sister, who was 7 years younger, my Aunt Bella, whom you saw in the picture, she was working in the bigger town, and she tried to go back home to this small village where her parents were, and the trains were no longer going there. So it was her lucky stroke, her stroke of luck, that she was able to stay with us, and that's what saved her.
Right.
Because I'll explain later what had happened to her.
We'll hear more about Bella as well.
Right. And so what the Romanians did, they took 20 men from the place where my aunt worked, and all Jews. Their only crime was being Jewish. And in the marketplace, they shot them all, and one of them, my aunt knew very well. He was an engineer. So we saw the handwriting on not I, because I was too young, but my mother and everybody. And before we knew it, the order came that we should be ready, and within 24 hours, that we had to leave our home behind. Well, what do you take with you? I mean, imagine, here I am, 81 years old, going back so many years. At 4, but I remember that vividly. My mother putting on layers of clothing on me, a backpack. Of course, toys didn't mean anything. She took bedding and whatever we could take with us. Everything else was left
Whatever you
behind.
could carry is what you
whatever we could carry. They took some bedding, and my mother took my father's clothing, his suits, and his prayer shawl, which miraculously, it survived the war. That's the only thing I have left of my father, which I will share with you later on. And we were on the way really to a death camp.
Before we go there, in addition to what you could carry with you, the family your mother tried to hide a few things, both on her, some money, and then hide a few valuables and photographs.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. My mother had an album which she hid in the attic. That's why I have the pictures, an album of pictures, photographs, and she hid some money. She said when we return, maybe we'll be able to salvage it, maybe it'll be there. And my grandmother, may she rest in peace, she had money sewn in her undergarments, and I asked, why are you doing this? Well, we never know, it might help us. And it certainly did help us, because when we were on the transport, we had to gather in a place.
This is, you had 24 hours to do all this.
Yes,
Yeah.
24 hours. I had a terrible ear infection. I remember so many hundreds of people all gathered, and our train was supposed to take us to Pretoria, which was a death camp for Romanian Jews. But rumor had it, my uncle found out, that some soldiers would take people on barges, and they would take them to the Ukraine, Transnistria, and the place was Shargorod. It was not only a ghetto, it was also a labor camp. And that's when my grandmother's...
So they would take it for a fee.
Yes,
Right,
for a
take
fee.
it for a fee.
But and they took us on barges because we crossed the Dnieper River. Even though they took the fee, they would hold the children, and the little children didn't know how to swim, and they would drown them. They would just throw them in the river. At that point, a soldier was holding my hand, and he, I guess, saw the anguished look on my mother's face. And I had blonde hair at the time, and he said, "Don't worry, I have a little girl just like yours. I am not going to do any harm to her. She'll be okay." So that was my first time that I was saved, but there were many other times too. So thank God there were some righteous Gentiles who did help. The whole world didn't just stand still.
So your family was able to bribe these soldiers. They took you across the river.
And that was taking a chance. We could have been shot because we snuck out at night. But there was some family. My grandmother had a brother, and they found out he was in that area. That's why he knew about the area. It was a very primitive town where Jews lived.
This is Shargorod.
Ghetto, right.
Shargorod,
That was
yeah.
Shargorod.
Okay.
We were the lucky ones. A family was forced to take us in. When I say primitive, it was like a clay hut. They had one bedroom. There were 4 people, and one large room with a potbelly stove that kept the heat. No bathrooms. There was a pail outside for us. The winters were bitter cold. They had very little, but they were forced to let 9 of us, there were 9 of us, 9 and 4, 13 people in a 1-bedroom house. And here sometimes people have mansions and they don't have a room for people, so I have to, it was,
Tell us.
we survived, and we slept on the floor, and times were very difficult.
Tell us who the 9 that were in your family, the 9 people that...
The 9 people that were in my family was my mother and I, and her sister, and my grandmother.
Your sister was Bella.
Bella, and my grandmother, my father's mother, and then my father's sister, Esther, her husband, her mother-in-law, and 2 children.
2 children.
So there were 9 of us.
Living in this little teeny house.
Living in this little teeny house with no rations. Food was a piece of bread and a little bit of oil, but we had shelter. I saw death in the street, and German shepherds. To this day, I am frightened of German shepherds. I like other dogs, but my friend had to put their German shepherd away whenever we came for dinner. It's that fear because you saw horrible things happen.
You described that time because you lived there in the ghetto in Shargorod for 3 years.
Oh yeah, and that's little, yes,
And
we
you-
lived, but things were so difficult. My uncle had diphtheria. There were no medications.
And what I was going to ask you to
Yeah.
tell us some more about that, because you described it as terrible as it was. You do have some recollection of both good times and bad times
Well,
during those 3 years that you were
The
there.
good times as a child, we tried
As a child,
to
right.
look at things positively, and I think I have a positive outlook. I thank God for that,
Right.
because that helped me survive. We found a little rock was a ball, my mother made a rag doll, and what kept us going too was cleanliness. My mother had to walk to a river, it was about a mile away, and my cousin and I had our rag dolls. We went with her, and I almost drowned there. I did. I fell in the water, and my cousin suddenly said, "Oh, Aunt Tina, look, there's a little girl in the water." And my mother didn't know how to swim, so she threw a sheet, and I grabbed onto it. She pulled me out, but it was such a traumatic experience for me that I did not speak for about 3 days. And at that time, they had, you've seen The Wizard of Oz, the Wicked Witch and the Good Witch. There was a woman that came, because we had no doctors, and she broke an egg on my forehead, and she started saying some abracadabra language, and she said, "Don't worry, your daughter will speak again." And sure enough,
You did.
I did. But the situation was so bad, my cousin especially, he was older, he was 7 years older, and he needed food, and my aunt used to yell at him, "Why can't you be like other children and steal?" He said, "No, we do not steal. It's one of the commandments." And since they had it so difficult, they saw we could not possibly survive, all of us, in that situation. After my uncle had diphtheria and he, survived it, they left for a different labor camp. And it was just my mother and I and my grandmother and my mother's sister that remained over there.
And you lost your grandmother during that time.
My
too.
grandmother was very ill. She had, in the Jewish religion, we are buried with shrouds, and she had, as a young child, I asked her, "What are these white shrouds when I die?" And she had a little sack of sand, and I said, "What is this?" "This is sand from the Holy Land, and when I am buried, I want that. And since you're my only grandchild here, I want you to light my candle." So it was very difficult to see your grandmother die in the same place where you lived.
In this little house.
Little house, and they came, there was a ritual committee that came, and they prepared her for her grave. But at that time, they didn't take children. She's my only grandparent that has a grave, but I've never gone back because the memories are not good. But she has a grave. The other family members do not, unfortunately. And I remember missing her very much, but she knew she would never see her son again. She had that feeling, and she had cancer, apparently. And it was difficult,
Rita,
very difficult. And we had to, even though you said positive things, we had a woman from our area who formed a little kindergarten.
That's what I was going to ask you to talk about.
Okay, and we attended, and I was thrilled when I was able, we learned some Hebrew, and she was singing with us, and we had like a show and tell, and I was thrilled when I was able to say, "Oh, today I had a piece of bread and oil." We sang, and we tried to forget what you're in, the negative situation and the sadness and the hunger. We would have, potato floating in soup. That was our staple. My aunts, because she was so handy, sewing and knitting, she went on the black market, and she would sometimes give these items or sell these items in exchange of a potato and bread and things like that.
And you'd said about the food that you do remember just being hungry all the time.
Oh, yes. And that's why when kids come over, they say I overdo it, and I don't waste food. I hate to throw any food away because there are poor children in the world. There are even poor children in the United States today. There's too much waste of food. I would rather give it to someone, but never throw away, because I do remember where I came from. It was difficult.
What do you know from later, what that time was like for your mother? As you mentioned, your aunt was able to do some sewing and sell goods on the black market within the ghetto. What did your mom do during that time? Do you know how she managed?
It's amazing. She must have been very strong, because she was in her 20s, didn't know where her husband was, didn't know where her parents or siblings were, except for the sister who was with us. Always concerned for my well-being, because I was an only child, being that the year I was born in, they heard Hitler's speeches already over the radio, and a younger child I don't think would have survived. The reason I survived was because I was never separated from my mother. Had I been separated from my mother, I don't think I would have made it. Although there are some miracles. I have some friends who are survivors. They did survive without their parent.
Right. Rita, you would continue to live and survive in that ghetto for 3 years. The Soviets returned in early 1944 after those 3 years. This time they came back as liberators. Tell us what you remember about the arrival of the Russians, and then what that meant for you, your aunt, and your mother, now that the Russians were back, but as liberators.
Right before they came, the front was coming very close, so we heard a lot of bombing, and the kind people who took us in to their house, primitive house, they went to some relative who had a sub-basement, because it was really deafening. I hate loud sounds, really startle me to this day. We went to the sub-basement, and then a young boy, a teenager, he couldn't stand it any longer. He said, "I'm going out to see what's happening." Everybody was frightened for him. "No, I'm going out." Well, when he came back, he said, "Oh, the Russians are here. There's drinking in the streets." We thought he was hallucinating. And when we came out, indeed, it was true. The Russians were there to liberate us. It was miraculous. Finally, the end was near. But what do we do?
Yeah. In fact, you said that as the Russians got there, and then for you, we were free to leave. But yeah, what do we do? We're free, but what does that mean?
How do we leave?
Yeah.
We have no tickets. We wanted to go back home.
You have no
see
money.
If anybody survived,
food.
no money, nothing.
Right.
Except for the belongings that we took with us. Well, we got on coal trains. And
Coal trains.
yes.
Trains, okay.
Oh, yeah. All different trains. And we boarded. And then my aunt, we went to Chernovitz, which is a larger town. And then my aunt met a woman whose father was a priest in her town, and her husband was in the Ukrainian underground and the army, and she made arrangements for my aunt to go back to our Văscăuti and to check it out. Our home was not available anymore because the Iron Curtain started setting in, and the Russians made it into a warehouse. They stored grain in there.
In what had been your family home?
In my Văscăuti family home.
Yep.
And we were able to get on a military train, because that woman made it possible for...
Before you did that,
Yes.
when you went back to the home and you couldn't go into it, is that when you were able to retrieve the photographs from the attic?
Yeah, well, let me get back
Okay.
to that. We wanted to find a place, but my great-grandparents had a little house. It was occupied, but this soldier intervened. He said, "You have to let this family," and they gave us a room for my aunt and myself and my mother. So we stayed there, and then my mother went back to the house. We didn't find anybody, unfortunately, there. She was given a hard time. "You can't enter here." She said, "Well, my husband was a soldier. I just want an album." She went up to the attic, retrieved the album. The money was gone. She didn't care about that. Then my father's best friend came back, And he told us that my father was killed while fighting. At least I have the knowledge that he was fighting the Germans, and that's how he got killed on the front. And we knew exactly the date, so we could observe, you know, his memory every year. We put up a candle and say the prayers. Then she wanted to know what happened to her parents. She went back to the village, and the villagers described the horrible death my grandparents met with. Here was my grandfather who would give they lived very well with the non-Jews, the Ukrainians, the same people he gave credit to before a holiday, before Christmas. They turned on him. And they, with farm implements, they had him watch how they butchered, how they murdered, really, his wife and all of the children. So this is how they described it to my mother. And then they let my pious grandfather witness it. And the next day, they
killed
murdered him as well. I mean, hearing that when you're in your 20s, loss of your husband, loss of your parents, and other extended family members. There were at least 24 or 30 family members that were gone. And their only crime was being Jewish. It was very hard being home, but we knew it was not home anymore. They didn't want us, and I started my first formal school, which was run by the Soviets. It was a Ukrainian school where I had to learn Ukrainian, and we were indoctrinated to love Stalin. He was the father, he loved children, and they made us kiss his picture.
And you remember that?
I remember that. I remember walking to school at least 2 miles with my cousins, and I had to memorize the poem. They didn't celebrate Christmas the same time we do here, but they called it Father Frost, Ded Moroz, and they had a big Christmas tree, and I had to memorize the poem in Ukrainian and recite it. I was a good student, but as a Jew, you felt left out. And when we saw there was no future, the Iron Curtain was setting in, my aunt was working in a bank, the Jewish underground had papers for us saying that we were born in Poland. And so we were able to get out. We knew there was no future in Romania. We had nothing to do there and no one there. So we were on the train with a false paper.
So just share with us what was significant about saying that you were Polish, that because you were Polish, that would allow you to return to Poland?
That would allow us to go back to Poland.
Okay.
Right. And there's another story of a righteous Gentile. There was a guard at the train station. He was checking the papers. He recognized my mother because his mother was a midwife for my grandmother when she gave birth to the younger children. So he didn't disclose it. He knew that we were not Polish.
He knew you were not Polish, yeah.
And my aunt was not permitted to come. We thought that they wouldn't allow her to come. They wouldn't allow her to come until 10 minutes before the train left. She came with us.
Do you know why she wasn't allowed to come with you?
Well, it was a communist country. They did not want her to leave. She was a bank employee. They made things very difficult. Our journey was very difficult too, because, we got on a real train going, but then until we got to Germany, it took us 3 months because we had to cross different borders. We were in the Czech Republic, we were in Poland. This was all done at night. We got on trains illegally.
We should probably explain for the audience that this was, of course, after the war ended.
This was after the war ended.
So that you were liberated in 1944. The war ended in May 1945. So you were there under the Soviets for over a year.
For over a year, right.
Yes. And so it was after May of 1945 that you were able to get the false papers.
It was in 1946 that we got to, after 3 months' journey, that we got to Munich, near Munich. It was a DP camp, which was
And that's
supported.
a displaced
persons camp for all the survivors, the remnants of the Holocaust.
Right.
But we felt free. We had schools were established, babies were born, people who lost their children, who lost their husbands, life was reborn. In fact, there were 2,000 babies born in Bergen-Belsen. Now, mind you, it was not a flush existence. We were in the same barracks where they trained the SS soldiers, but we had a room. We got the United States, the HIAS, the Hebrew Sheltering Society, UNESCO. In fact, General Eisenhower, came to visit our camp. I was at the sanitarium then. The reason some of us were really ill after the horrible things we went through, the starvation and no medications, when we went to school, we had health exams, and a lot of us had tuberculosis. And this was shortly after the war. I was separated from, my mother took me. I was in a sanitarium, and I was there for 9 months.
Do you know how far away it was from the displaced persons camp?
Yes, it was about an hour away. It was not close, and here I was 10 years old, separated from my mom. She left me.
For how long? 9 months?
9 months.
9 months.
And there were still anti-Semitic nurses because it was shortly after the war. And this was Germany. I think my pain tolerance comes from that period because I needed streptomycin, but it was only available for certain cases of TB. When my mother came back to see me, I saw her once a week. She was looking for me. They said, no, your daughter's in quarantine because I really had an advanced case of TB. And thank God, though, there was one kind doctor, and I needed surgery. While I was on the operating table, my mother was able to get streptomycin she wrote to family members, and they sent it, but she came with, I still had the shots. And that affected my hearing. I heard that affects, because I had shots every 3 hours for 3 months. But thank God for that. Right. And we were concerned because of for health reasons. We knew we wanted to immigrate to the United States. And
so you needed to be in full health to do that.
Good health.
You shared with me that while you were in the displaced persons camps, of course, you were getting, in effect, care packages, food was coming in.
Yes.
And you would then take the canned goods that would come and barter them. Say a little bit about that.
Yes, we had a wonderful school. We loved school. You know, those kids that say, oh, school, you're so lucky, because I lost my childhood and a lot of school years. So suddenly we had a thirst for knowledge. We had history and math and geography, all the subjects, and Hebrew, and we learned about the world. We put on plays, and just to give you an example, I met people who did not speak a word of Yiddish because some of my friends were hidden in some convents or with other people's homes. So I learned how to speak Polish, but if you don't know how to write it, you forget it, you know, if you don't use. But I spoke Polish fluently because of need. And my mother was sitting in the audience. I loved to perform. And one woman sitting next to her, she said, I wonder if this little girl's mother is alive. And my mother said, I am her mother. And the woman started to cry because she said, I lost a child the same age and never to see her again from Auschwitz. There were countless stories, but they took us on outings. I survived my TB, and I will never forget 1948, May 15th, 1948, when Israel was declared independent. The whole school, we were like 100 children. We stayed up all night. We built a big bonfire, and we sang and danced because we finally had a country where to go to. Even though the British mandate was there, it was difficult to go to. And the United States was the first, Harry S. Truman, who declared it. We were just thrilled with joy. There was a song written, "Tell me where shall I go, there's no place for me, to the left, to the right." Nobody wanted us. You've heard of the St. Louis, where everybody was turned away. And there is an exhibit now, What Did the United States Do? I would recommend you see it.
Just opened up a few weeks ago.
Yes, as a matter of fact.
So that was May 1948. You stayed there almost another year, I think.
Oh yes, almost another year. And of course my Zionist roots were there, and I wanted to go to Israel, but my mother said, "You're my only child, my only sister." There was a quota system then, and my aunt was permitted to go to the United States before. I think in 47 she immigrated.
Aunt Bella? Oh,
Aunt Bella.
Because she had married while in the
She
displacement.
married there,
Yep.
married a dental mechanic, but he was a dentist at the camp. And then we had my father's two sisters there, but my aunt, who survived the war, she was in a different DP camp. She went to Israel because her son, who was older, he started swimming the channel because he said he is going to Israel, even though she had two sisters in the United States. But of course, I went, and I don't regret it at all, because she said, "No, we're going to the United States. You're my only child." And she married there because she was advised.
Married in the camp?
In camp.
In camp, okay.
A stepfather. He was 15 years older, and he lost his family in Auschwitz. They told my mother it's better not to come as a widow to the United States.
So get married, and she did.
Get married, right. And
before you tell us about leaving the DP camp and coming to the
Yes.
U.S., the aunt and uncle that had been with you in Shargorod who left,
yes.
what happened to them?
Well, they're the ones that survived.
They're the ones who
came
survived.
to the little town, right, and they went to
So
Israel.
you reunited again.
Right, and you said in exchange for food, yes, we got Spam and tuna fish cans. We didn't know what it was. We had never seen it. So my stepfather would take it to the farmers, and they in turn would give us fresh vegetables.
They'd give you fresh vegetables for the Spam.
Right, for the Spam. And some chickens, and so
Yeah.
we had them slaughtered, and we had the food was not a problem. The children used to steal from the orchard some apples, and we had fun there. We went to the woods, we went strawberry picking.
And like you said, went to school.
Life was really reborn for everybody. It was difficult, very difficult, but everybody was grateful to have survived. And then, of course, we came to the United States.
1949, right?
1949, we had a quota system, and we were finally,
Your number came up, right?
and they still have Ellis Island, but they no longer gave you exams on Ellis Island. But in Bremerhaven, which was the port that took the ship, where you took the ship, we had to pass the exams. And we were very nervous because I had TB.
Right.
But I passed the test. And it was not a cruise ship, let me tell you that.
And the reason it took till 1949, because you were waiting for...
We were waiting for the quota.
Because of the quota, waiting for your
Right.
opportunity.
So we were definitely legal immigrants,
Yep.
and we had to have papers, and we had to have a sponsor, make sure that, we wouldn't be a burden to the state. And finally, when our quota came up, and we were on an Army transport, I still remember the name,
As
General.
you said, not a cruise ship.
General Hahn, no, not by any means. That was an Army transport, and we were right near the engine. In September, the oceans are very, very rough. And we had bunk beds. There were quite a few women on one side, by 20, and my mother said, "Take the upper bunk, because if we're sick, nobody will, excuse me." And she was so right. We never went on board at all because we were so...
Never went on the upper deck?
On the upper deck, I mean. We didn't go to the dining room. We couldn't keep anything down because it was very turbulent. But I will never forget, it was one of the most beautiful moments in my life when we were told we were nearing the harbor in New York, Manhattan. We went on board then, and when the Statue of Liberty, greeted us, there were tears of joy, and I felt finally we can practice our religion. We can be proud of who we are. We can go to a synagogue. We can go to schools. This is a land of opportunity. It was, we were really so thrilled to be here. Housing was very difficult. We qualified for welfare because we came with nothing. But it was a shanda, meaning it was a shame. You do not do that. My stepfather learned how to paint houses. He was a businessman before. He was a house painter. My mother worked in a Barton's, a factory. You've seen the Lucille Ball with the vending machine.
Oh, right.
Some of you are too young to know about Lucille Ball.
The same kind of work
right,
environment.
Right, the same kind of work. This is a land of opportunity. I went to school. I started, why they put me in a 7 SP, which is a special class where they taught French. I didn't speak a word of English. It was sink or swim. I didn't open up my mouth for 3 months. My mother, I told her, we're in the United States now. We're only going to speak English. I was ashamed of Yiddish then because I wanted to become Americanized. My cousins, whom I had here, I met for the first time. They said, because of you, we had to finish everything on the plate because they said Rivka was starving in Europe. Oh. And they said, you have to become Americanized. I had long braids. I was wise beyond my years because of all the sad experiences I went through and losses. I lost my childhood. But I was not mature enough as far as socially. I had to cut my braids, and you can't be Rivka, you have to be Rita. So I became Americanized very fast, and my mother was amazing too. She knew all the capitals of the United States. She made sure she learned all the history, and we were so grateful. It's a land of opportunity. You don't know how lucky we are. We can criticize. We have our freedoms to criticize. Our presidents are not always the ones we select. They're not always role models. But we'll come through it. We pray and we come through it.
Rita, you described to me that your mother, though, was overly protective of you at that time. Will you say a little bit about that?
Oh, being an only child, she was very protective of me. She was afraid of my going ice skating. I didn't have a bicycle.
Well, after all she'd been through with you, I mean, it just made all the sense.
Yes, and it was hard because I went to school at night. Also, and if you excelled, talking about school, the frustrating thing, they gave me an IQ test in 7th grade, and I was just a greenhorn, really. 3 months here. Right. I didn't know a shoemaker from a tailor. It's a wonder I passed the IQ test. And I recall in high school, the principal called me in. I said, why is he calling me in? I was a good student. He said, I've never seen anybody improve so much in an IQ test. I said, you know what? You gave an IQ test to a young woman, a young girl who didn't even know the difference. I said, by some sheer luck, I passed it. Of course I improved. And with perseverance, I got a scholarship. I didn't have to pay for college. I became a teacher, and thank God I met my husband, who was also a survivor. We had nothing, and this is a land of opportunity. We were the first to own a car, which we earned, first to own a home, got here and settled in.
Rita, you
very
told
grateful.
us about your prayer shawl.
Yes.
Will you go back to that for us and share it with us? And again, describe, this was your father's.
Yes.
And you were able to hang on to it through all that you went through.
This prayer shawl is the only thing that I have left of my dad. And it's very special to me. I know the Holocaust Museum wanted me to donate it, but I'm very fortunate. I married and had 3 daughters. Of course, unfortunately, I had 35 beautiful years with my husband, and he died, but he left a wonderful legacy. He only saw 4 grandchildren, and he used to wear this prayer shawl on the high holidays. I wear it now because I'm in a conservative synagogue. It was given, the custom was for the bride's parents to present the groom, their future son-in-law, with a prayer shawl. And this is the prayer shawl they gave to my dad. Must have been 84 years. It's 84 years old. And when I gave it to clean, I gave it to a special place. This is called an atara. The guy told me that this was sterling silver, and what they made it then, it has snaps, comes off, so I was able to clean that. I was afraid to clean. And so this is very dear to me, and it's been present at every one of my grandchildren's b'nai mitzvah when they were bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah. So I won't part with it, and hopefully it'll go to the next generation, great-grandchildren someday. But this is it. I'll open it up for you to see. It's a real big one. And so we put it on. I feel close to my dad wherever he is. And I'll continue to tell the story, so their memories should live on. And you should be able to tell people that indeed I met a survivor, and tell your children and grandchildren. Because in 15, 20 years, I am one of the younger ones. We'll all be gone, but their memories and your story will go on. And I hope that history will never repeat itself, and that you never experience war or hunger or losses in your family.
Rita, thank you. We're gonna hear more from Rita in a little bit, including we have time for a few questions from you. So if you have a question and would like to ask it, we can do that now. We have microphones, 1 in each aisle. We ask that you go to the microphone, try to make your question as brief as you can. I'll repeat it just to be sure that we hear it correctly, and then Rita will respond to it.
What about closing remarks?
You'll get Rita.
Oh.
We'll come back to that, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We won't forget. So, and if folks, if you can stay with us, we're going to hear some final words from Rita too in a moment. And here we have a question.
I was a little curious about the Yiddish. My grandparents also spoke Yiddish, but only when they didn't want us to know what they were saying. So your mother and grandmother, they also spoke Hebrew as well, right? So
Question, if your family spoke Hebrew as well as Yiddish.
Yes.
No, the Hebrew was just in prayer, but they spoke Yiddish at home. That was my mama lashon, or mother tongue, as you say.
that's so interesting, because I never understood why my grandparents never shared that with us. But you said she was embarrassed, right? She was embarrassed about your culture, the not wanting to be Americanized, and so she didn't want
Not clear to
to
me.
teach
When
the
you
Yiddish.
came to the United States,
What about?
speaking Yiddish when you first came to the United States, you were trying to learn English at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's sad.
Yes, it was difficult, but you learn. I learned how to speak.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have another one.
Thank you so much for your stories and recollections.
I can't.
My grandmother was.
Can you speak into the mic? I'm sorry, I have
And I'll try to repeat it too, if I
Okay.
can, Rita. Yeah.
a hearing impairment.
Thank you again for your recollections and stories. My grandmother was a teenager in Paris during the occupation, and she tells me stories about how they hid a Jewish woman in their home to save her. But when I ask her about her experiences, she describes a visceral reaction to Germans and other people that oppressed her. And I'm just wondering how you overcome all the sadness and grief and the visceral reactions, the bad memories that you have.
Question is, Rita, asking how if you have, how you've overcome your visceral feelings about all the terrible things you experienced and those that oppressed you, the Nazis, the Romanians.
Well, I count my blessings, let's put it this way. I'm lucky I smile. People say, why are you smiling? Because I am a survivor, and when you smile, the world smiles with you. I always see my glass half full rather than half empty. And there are other people that are less fortunate. When I hear some of my friends' stories from Auschwitz and Dachau, that's why at first I felt I wasn't privileged. My friend who works at the museum, she said, you lost your childhood, you lost your grandparents, your father. Of course you have a story. I didn't have as horrible a story as they did, and so I didn't feel that I should talk about it, but she said, no, every story has to be told. And I did have loss of sight at a point, and that's why I decided to travel to other places so children know, and you don't know how lucky you are. Our kids here don't. We are still the greatest country in the world, I believe.
Thank you.
I think we're towards the end of our program, and we're going to hear from Rita. So before I turn back to Rita to close our program, I want to remind you that we'll have programs each Wednesday and Thursday until the 9th of August. If you can't come back for another program, all our programs are on the museum's YouTube page, and we hope that you can watch them again at another point. When Rita's finished, Rita's going to remain on the stage here, and we invite you to please come up on the stage if you would like. If you have a question that you didn't get a chance to ask and you'd like to, that would be a great opportunity, or you can just meet her, give her a hug, take a photograph with her, whatever you want to do when Rita's done. It's our tradition at First Person that our first person gets the last word. And so on that note, I'm turning back to Rita.
Okay. First, I want to thank God that we survived one of the darkest periods in history. And I'm really grateful to the United States for opening its doors to us. It's, as I said before, the greatest country in the world. We should appreciate the freedoms that we have and opportunities. I'm proud to be a U.S. citizen. I'm very patriotic. I always fly the flag on 4th of July, Memorial Day, and we should thank our men and women in the military for the sacrifices they have made in protecting our freedom. And I just want to share with you, there was a photographer and filmmaker by the name of Luigi Toscano, who was here in April, and he took photographs of survivors. What those photographs were unique, he blew them up. I don't know, some of you may have been at the reflecting pool, and to large portraits, just to be outside, not in a museum. They can withstand all kinds of weather, with a little blurb of our history, each survivor's history. There were 22 survivors from the museum here, and I was one of the volunteers. And we were all on the mall, not on the mall, the reflecting pool right beside Lincoln Memorial, under Lincoln Memorial. And I think his project is wonderful. The display sends a strong message to the deniers of the Holocaust and is a teaching tool for young and old who never heard of the Holocaust, because in museums, they wouldn't see it, but outside, in fact, I had some phone calls from students. I will tell you that seeing my portrait at the reflecting pool and those of my fellow survivors took on a special meaning. I really felt honored and privileged to be displayed here. It brought memories of a young Dr. Martin Luther King, I was a very young mother then, and his memorable I Have a Dream address in 1963, where he stated that all people are created equal and that freedom and justice will prevail. A lot of what he dreamt came to fruition, but there's still much to be done. I, too, have a dream that we will live in harmony and peace, with respect for each other. I want to see a world that is free from genocides. Unfortunately, past history has several accounts of genocide, just like in World War II. And there are genocides occurring today in Syria, Myanmar, Somalia, Nigeria, to name just a few. I don't want our history to be repeated and to impact our children's and grandchildren's future. Take a stand is my message. Do the right thing. Speak up when you see something wrong against fellow humanity. Denounce anti-Semitism, racism, ethnic hatred, ethnic cleansing, and religious intolerance. The future is in your hands, everyone. When you save one person's life, it's as though you have saved the world. God bless you all. God bless the United States of America. And thank you for letting me share my story with you.